When I first came to Lac Medan and beheld the phalanx, Suicide went on, I thought it was the most ludicrous form of warfare I had ever seen. In my country, we fight on horseback. This to me was the only way, grand and glorious. A spectacle that stirs the soul. The phalanx looked like a joke to me, but I admired the men, their virtue, which was so clearly superior to that of every other nation I had observed and studied. It was a puzzle to me.
I glanced to Dionysius across the fire to see if he had previously heard these thoughts articulated by Suicide. Perhaps in the years before I had entered his service, when the Cyanthian alone stood at his squire. Upon my master's face was written rapt attention. Clearly his bounty from Suicide's lips was a novel to him as to the others.
Do you remember Dionysius when we fought the Thebans at Erythrae? When they broke and ran, this was the first rout that I witnessed. I was appalled by it. Can there exist a baser, more degrading sight beneath the sun than a flanks breaking apart in fear? It makes one ashamed to be mortal, to behold such inevitably, even in an enemy. It violates the higher laws of God. Suicide's face, which had been a grimace of disdain, now brightened into a cheery mode. Ah, but the opposite. A line that holds. What can be more grand, more noble?
One night I dreamt I marched within the phalanx. We were advancing across a plain to meet the foe. Terror froze my heart. My fellow warriors strode all around me, in front, behind, to all the sides. They were all me, myself odd, myself young. I became even more terrified, as if I were coming apart into pieces. Then all began to sing. All the me's, all the myselfs, as their voices rose in sweet concord. All fear fled my heart. I woke with a still breast and knew this was a dream straight from God.
I understand then that it was the glue that made the phalanx great, the unseen glue that bound it together. I realized that all the drill and discipline you Spartans love to pound into each other's skulls were really not to inculcate skill or art, but only to produce this glue. Medon laughed. And what glue have you dissolved, Suicide, that finally allows your jaws to flap with such an unscythian immoderation?
Suicide grinned across the fire. Medon was the one, it was said, who had originally given the Scythian his nickname, when he, guilty of a murder in his country, had fled to Sparta, where he had asked again and again for death.
When I first came to Lactium, they called me Suicide. I hated it, but in time I came to see its wisdom, unintentional as it was. For what can be more noble than to slay oneself, not literally, not with a blade in the guts, but to extinguish the selfish self within, that part which looks only to its own preservation. To save its own skin, that, I saw, was a victory you Spartans had gained over yourselves. That was the glue. It was you had learned and had made me stay to learn it too.
When a warrior fights, not for himself, but for his brothers, when his most passionately sought goal is neither glory nor his own life's preservation, but to spend his substance for them, his comrades, not to abandon them, not to prove unworthy of them, then his heart truly has achieved contempt for death, and with that he transcends himself, and his actions touch the sublime.
A messenger appeared, summoning Dionysius to Leonidas' council. My master motioned me to accompany him. Something had changed within him. I could sense it as we picked our way among the network of trails that crisscrossed the camps of the Allies. Do you remember the night, Zio, when we sat with Ariston and Alexandros and spoke of fear and its opposite? I said I did.
I have the answer to my question. Our friends, the merchant and the Scythian, have given it to me. His glance took in the fires of the camp, the nations of the Allies clustered in their units, and their officers, whom we could see, like us, approaching from all quarters the king's fire, ready to respond to his needs and receive his instructions. The opposite of fear, Danikas said, is love.
I would say that this reading that we had really does portray to be ours, especially when it talks about the unforeseen glue that bound them together. Just kind of what they had to do. We go through so much together and all this adversity and things that we do. It's just all that is to build our brotherhood and to strengthen us and make us closer, kind of bring us together as one. And also where it says, when a warrior fights not for himself but his brothers, when his most passionately sought goal is neither glory nor his own life preservation. I think that really portrays the cycle a lot, because when we're here, we're one. And I mean, I'm really when I'm not really worried about messing up, so I won't get smoked. It's so because I'm worried about my guys around me, and I'm looking out for them almost more than I ever myself. And that's one thing that I've really kind of learned over these 12 weeks, and it's that you can really see that throughout this reading as well.
I believe the given reading material is to demonstrate unit cohesion and what we have with our candidate class. We have such a strong bond, and it's almost like glue, I guess you could say, that keeps us together. Throughout when we first started throughout cycle, there wasn't so much cohesion, unit cohesion and stuff, but throughout the weeks we've come strong together. We've come through. We've suffered together. We've had sweat, blood, and tears for this, and we've come so far. We're absolutely we are absolutely watching each other's back at all times. We will never get on each other. We will always fight for each other. There's not a moment where I would not trust any of my candidates to watch my back at any given moment in my life. And we will always have that fighting spirit for each other. Whenever I look into one of my candidates' eyes during an exercise when he tells us to, I will not give up on them, and they will not give up on me, because we motivate each other when we look in each other's eyes.
I think that the passage you assigned for us to read is relevant to our candidate class because we came from our comfort of our normal lives before we were PRs, and we stepped into an environment that was uncomfortable, and we were in the dark about what to expect, and then we were exposed to the tactics of PR cycle, and we didn't understand why they were benefiting us, and we didn't understand how we were supposed to go through the tasks that were asked of us. And as we continue to go through them, we grew as a candidate class, and we're still growing to become stronger and forge our brotherhood together as a candidate class. And all of these tactics that we didn't understand, that we didn't know why they were relevant, have been the foundation that have built this brotherhood and the mold between our candidate class.
The passage you have provided us to read is a good example of our candidate class. We all started out as individuals and wanting to do our own thing. Throughout our intense workouts and all of our hard work we put in, we are finally starting to get that everyone is working together and becoming a team. Without great discipline and self-sacrificing movements, there is no chance for success.
Oh.
The passage that you assigned us relates to PRs and our candidate class, because at the beginning when he's talking about the phalanx, when he talks about how he believed it was ridiculous, that kind of relates to how in the beginning we all didn't know what was going on. This was pretty foreign to us. But then we realized that as we worked as a team, we realized that the phalanx, or I guess as a cycle class, we realized how this will benefit us. And then as Suicide is talking about how he got his nickname, how he suicide of his selfishness, that kind of relates to us, how we had to work as a team to survive through cycle. So.
Go.
The passage that we were assigned to read relates to PRs in our candidate class and the whole cycle process. Because at the beginning he talks about how pretty much horrible it was to see a phalanx break and just see everybody give up on each other, which is how we all started out. And then he says that there's nothing more beautiful than a phalanx that stays strong and stands together, which is what we've all been building to do. Later on, he talks about how your actions mean nothing for the most part when they're not for somebody else. They talk about how your actions are sublime when you're sacrificing yourself for others. And when he talks about how the opposite of fear is love, he's kind of referencing to us how we need to stop being scared. How they say fortune favors the bold. Just be brave for your friends, for your brothers, and love them.
The passage relates to PRs in our candidate class because in the beginning of the passage, he talks about how the phalanx was really foreign and kind of absurd to outsiders and even people just who are new to it. And that's a lot how cycle is for us coming in as candidates, and even people outside that don't understand why us as candidates go through what we do, and even we don't fully understand why we do. to the most extent right now. And then the next part of the passage, they talk about how he got his nickname Suicide, and how it's important to kind of kill your selfish being. And I think that relates because through cycle we're almost destroying the weaker parts of our personality and building up our stronger traits. And then they also talk about how the opposite of fear is love, and that has to do a lot with like the brotherhood and the fraternity. How when you're going through something that might be fearful or difficult, you can turn to your brothers and the love and bond that you have with your candidates and get through whatever it may be.
The assigned passages relate to our candidate class and PRs because in the book it says, when a warrior fights not for himself but for his brothers, when his most passionately sought goal is neither glory nor his life's own preservation, but to spend his substance for them and his comrades, not to abandon them, then his heart surely has achieved contempt for death. See, in the beginning, our candidates, we came to cycle just to show out for ourselves. We were just trying to survive and get through it ourselves. But now we understand that as a candidate class, we need to fight for each other. That's the only way that we'll get through cycle, is to show out for each other. We all have our own special traits that bring us together as a good candidate class.
The passage we read relates to PRs because the Spartans had drill and discipline pounded into them, which produced a glue between them. This glue is what we have in cycle. It's what is the outcome of cycle. In the book it says the glue is what made them great and what bound them together. This glue gives us trust in each other, trust in our decisions, and trust in each other to get what we need done. Trust that we will help each other make it through and always be there for each other. So we would not be able to make it through cycle without the trust that comes from all the tough things that we have to go through. In the book it says a true warrior cannot speak of battles save to his brothers. The cycle is something that we go through together, which makes it our unique experience, which others won't understand. They always tell us, keep it between your candidate class. Like, these are experiences that we can only have with each other, and that's why we should keep it between each other, and that's how it relates to our candidate class.
The passage can be related to PRs, most particularly in the part where they talk about how it's all this drill and everything is hammered into them. It's hammered into their heads, and that brings them all together. That brings them close together. That's that glue that holds them together. And when you're held together, you will fight for your brother, and you will do anything for your family because y'all are together through that glue.